Hey friends, I'm Otis Gibbs, and this is my buddy Kevin Anchor. He's going to talk about the realities of being a touring sideman.
When people get involved in a gig where there is a person who's in charge that created the situation, it's like they did the road work to get you where you're working. And that's the kind of thing that you have to appreciate is, like these gigs don't last forever. But the work that the person who is the one who's making it last forever, the work that they did, that's the important part. Like Bob Dylan, we were talking before we started taping, guys are in Bob Dylan's band and they're in his band for a tour or two, but it's Bob Dylan. He did the work. And you got to appreciate that you're in that band. When you go on tour with McCartney, you got to appreciate that you're doing that tour. They did the work. Whether you care for their work or not, they did the work. And that's the hard part. I'm never going to be a famous genius. I'm never going to be, a Beatle or anything like that. I'm just going to be me. And I'm going to be happy being a sideman because I don't want to rely on musicians to get me gigs. Those of us who live in sideman land don't necessarily have is that all the way to the wall mentality. That's why we like to be hired and not to be in charge. Being in charge involves entirely too much responsibility.
No fun to set up those hotel rooms.
Exactly, and it's no fun to sleep in them. But it's also it's no fun to have cats flake on you, which is musicians is like herding cats. Being in charge, it's herding cats. As a keyboard player, when it comes to the instruments, the backline, you're never playing the same thing to begin with. And then you don't really get any time to warm up. So like a guitar player can sit in his room and, I could always tell where our guitar player's room was, with the T-Birds, because he'd be in there with his little amplifier. He'd have, battery powered amplifier and he'd be playing constantly, but I wouldn't have any really, any access to a keyboard. So I just watching movies, listening to music, go walk around the block, most of the time you're not staying in a very groovy location, so you're by an airport and there's nowhere to go. So you get to sound check and that's the first time you can actually kind of wiggle your fingers a little bit and figure out the digital piano in particular, because, normally I'd have a Hammond organ, and as long as I have a Hammond, I can make the gig happen. The organ itself is such a beast that I can figure out a way to make anything work with it. But you get the digital piano, and okay, so first of all, has somebody transposed it? Because that happens. So okay, it's in key, everything's in key with the organ, everything's good. Is the organ in tune with the piano? Because I remember we did a festival back in the mid-'90s, and we had the organ on stage, and that was when I learned that Hammond organs didn't agree with generators. We'd hauled my Hammond onto the stage, and it was out of tune. I don't know if you remember that, but I do. Oh Lord, that was a lesson. That was actually another thing that happened with Delbert. I did this Swiss rock and blues cruise with him. And they rented one of the 2 Hammonds in all of Switzerland for this cruise. For me, side note, typically when a Hammond's been rented for me, it's getting paid more than I am. But, so we're getting up on stage to do a sound check, and I hit a note on the organ, and I hit a note on the piano. And at this point, I knew that generators caused problems for the tuning of a Hammond organ because of the design of the motor that runs the organ. And I'm looking at this organ knowing that it's probably getting paid a couple grand. or so, and I looked at, the tech people, and I'm like, I can't use this. It's useless. What else do you have? And it just so happened that one of the other bands on the cruise had a digital Hammond that we could run through the Leslie. Yeah, but yeah, that was the first time that I really realized how much less I was getting paid than the organ. Sometimes I got paid less than the airlines. So you get these digital pianos, and you have to figure out, A, if they're in tune, transposed or not. Then there would be certain things I would do to, when I got the piano that I wanted, I'd go through and make some edits to the sounds to make sure that they were to my liking. And then I'd get to a certain region of the country, and, backline is regional. And I'd start going to edit and go, oh, I've played this one before. Because the edits were all to my taste and my liking. But you never have control over what you're going to play. I guess that's the end of the day. The point is, like, a guitar player brings his guitar, a bass player brings his bass, the amplifier is their variable. Drummer brings cymbals and maybe a snare. They bring their sticks, but the kit's a variable. But for me, the entire rig is a variable. And then, like, when I'm working around town, I got my own speaker, and I play through my speaker, and I can control my world. Whereas when you're on the road and you're playing through monitors, the monitor guy controls your world. The guitar player is playing through an amplifier, the bass player is playing through a bass amp, and the drummer's playing physical drums, and my little keyboard is going through the monitors. And almost invariably, the monitor guy's behind me. So I've got to sit here and, like, try to, hey, get the monitor guy's attention when he's focused on the singer. And, I always try to ingratiate myself with the monitor guy, where, like, when you're setting up and going to sound check, and what's like, you tell them, like, I have a really complicated mix. I just want to hear me. Because you say, I got a really complicated mix, they're thinking, oh my God, this is that guy. I just want to hear me. I don't want to hear anyone else. Because, I know how loud these guys play, so I know I'm going to hear them anyway. I just want to hear me. And I want to hear me more than you think I want to hear me. Because I actually want to hear me. I want to be a little more relaxed. I want this part of the volume knob to be my maximum. And I want my hands to be my minimum. I want to play like I'm playing a piano, not like I'm, surfing the whole time. When your gear is provided for you, you become incredibly lazy, and you kind of lose muscle. I think that's early in the pandemic, I kind of joked on Facebook, like, okay, musicians, spend your time practicing loading in and out of your vehicle so you don't lose that muscle, because that muscle is real.